Hi, my name is Meredith, and I'm going to be presenting on bipolar disorder. What is it, and what is it like across experiences? And that includes between children and adults, how it presents, what are the symptoms, and what is the diagnosing process like. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder characterized by extreme fluctuations in a person's mood, energy, and cognitive function abilities. People often experience extreme mood swings, aggression, irritability, and episodes that are depressive or manic. During depressive episodes, people often experience lower mood, motivation, interest, or pleasure in doing things. With lower mood and lower interest, there's often increased sadness and racing thoughts, as well as higher irritability. Manic episodes are a more hyperactive state in which someone usually has an increased mood and energy level, higher impulsivity, lower need for sleep, and racing thoughts.
Hi, so this is the voice you're hearing, and just to learn a little bit more about what an actual experience with bipolar disorder is like, I recruited a friend of mine and I was able to interview him about his experience, which is
around my 18th birthday, was being treated for depression and anxiety, so my doctor put me on Prozac at the time. I was on Prozac most of that summer, and then going into the school year, my first semester of college, I noticed specifically that I was having a really hard time shutting up. I would just keep talking and talking and talking no matter what I wanted. Even if I wanted to stop talking, I would just keep going. And it got to a point where I remember I was sitting on the floor of some dorm wing that I didn't live in, and I was just telling the people who lived there my deepest secrets, and I had no idea who any of them were, and I couldn't stop. At one point I decided to go to CAPS. At my intake appointment, they mentioned they want to screen me. They want to get me with one of the psychiatrists there to screen me for bipolar disorder. And then at my next appointment, they diagnosed me. Occasionally I wouldn't be able to sleep, but that never happened too much. I would sleep maybe 4 hours a night and wake up the next morning feeling super energetic, but that wasn't always the case. When I first got depressive symptoms, it was very, very hard to keep friendships. Not only was it I didn't feel like I had the energy to put effort into, keeping up social relationships, but also I would get mad at, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention this as well. Another big symptom I had was irritability. I would get very, very irritable all the time. Yeah. And that's still a pretty big one I have, even though I'm medicated now. But yeah, I would be irritated really easily, and I would get into fights for no reason when I was depressed. When I was manic, I had an easier time keeping up relationships at first because I just felt like I wanted to be social all the time, so I kept talking to people. But then I got to a point where people started to become annoyed by how much I was talking, and they just started to tune me out. I would start spewing about something that just made no sense. I would think I had this great new idea. I made this connection that I put together that nobody else had before, and they'd be like, "You need to stop talking. This is so annoying." So definitely it took a little bit of work to figure that out. It's definitely harder to maintain social relationships when you're deep in an episode, but in between, it's fine, and there's definitely ways to manage it.
Bipolar disorder is a very complicated disorder, and so when it comes to children, it's likely insufficient to diagnose them with such a disorder. Therefore, children that experience extreme fluctuations in mood and exhibit behaviors of outbursts, overreactions that are disproportionate to the situation, and can have aggressive behaviors in regards to those reactions, those children will receive a diagnosis DMDD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. These children can hyperfixate and experience persistent irritable moods, and will be in those cycles for an extensive period of time. And they'll experience similar highs and lows in the same extreme form that adults with bipolar disorder experience. When it comes to the prevalence of bipolar disorder, it commonly affects 2.8% of US adults. 4.4% are likely to be diagnosed at some point throughout their life, and the worldwide prevalence is around 1%, which is still significant. The prevalence of adolescent bipolar disorder is around 3%, and there are so many factors in development and mood that the prevalence that the lifetime prevalence of bipolar disorder, where patients experience this disorder their entire life, is 4.3% when diagnosed in older ages, like 17 to 18, when compared to when diagnosed younger at like 13 to 14, the lifetime prevalence is only 1.9%. That's where DMDD comes in, because diagnosing children younger than that with bipolar disorder just turns out to be a misdiagnosis. DMDD is diagnosed when children experience outbursts and tantrums that are frequent and excessive, especially compared to the situation or their response to something happening. Their moods can be chronically irritable and can be persistent in an angry state. These extreme fluctuations in mood can impair their cognitive function and can include disruptions at home or in school. To find out more about what experiences with DMDD and bipolar disorder really are like, I interviewed a friend of my mom's. I'll kind of share a little bit about what his experience was like through her interview with me.
I'm Meredith, and I'm going to kind of share with you that interview that my mom's friend was kind enough to share with me about her son with DMDD and what that was like and how that kind of presents in him. He is currently 11 and was diagnosed when he was around 8 years old in 3rd grade, and he should be going into 5th grade now. His story, he was adopted into this family at like 1 month old, and from the beginning they kind of noticed that his mood was very difficult to regulate. He would have extreme emotions and feel things on just a severe degree, and sometimes it wasn't proportionate to what the situation was, and he can like hyperfixate on a certain idea, like going to Target and buying a certain toy. When are we gonna do that? When are we gonna do that? When are we gonna go to Target? Are we gonna go to Target today? When am I gonna get that toy? So this kind of overwhelming fluctuation where he would have extreme excitement about a certain idea and then experience like tantrums and outbursts when things weren't right, and he wouldn't know how to properly express his dislike for a situation in another more appropriate expressive way. He also had the extreme highs. So when he was 8, they began doing testing to find out what exactly was going on with his mood, because it wasn't typical of kids his age. So he was put through plenty of questionnaires, and the family was getting the background on his mood, and he was doing all sorts of tests, and they received the diagnosis and began doing therapy and finding medication, and it seemed to really help. And it's cognitive behavioral therapy, so it kind of he's able to assess his moods and become more aware of exactly what's going on, and he's doing a lot better with noticing and regulating, and he can identify the symptoms and come up with a solution better on his own. So sometimes he can just voice up and say, I think I'm hungry. And, you know, then his mom will be like, all right, let's go grab something to eat. Let's get something in you. From the testing though, they came back and they were like, he's incredibly smart. He's a really intelligent guy, but in school and during the testing, it was his frustration in like being rushed or being the last person to be done, or this frustration, and that was holding him back and really thriving in the tests. So, you know, as he's getting older, he's being put like with the proper accommodations in school, and the school has fully supported this family with getting to know them. I was able to ask about, you know, how are his relationships with others and his socializing, and she said it's been pretty okay. It's been a little bit difficult. Like, he has a couple friends that have been able to really stand by him, but his mood and fluctuations that are just so rapid, and he can really lash out on them. So I think it is hard for him to keep a lot of friends, but it means that the friends that really do like care for him as a person, they stand by. And so DMDD has been incredibly helpful in preventing like misdiagnosis in childhood by diagnosing children with bipolar disorder when the symptoms aren't exactly the same. There are a lot of factors that are with, you know, experiences of anxiety and depression and the episodes and fluctuations in mood. So I was interested in both sides of it. So I'm really glad that I was able to sit down and talk to both my friend and my mom's friend about their unique experiences with these mood disorders. They're obviously a lot alike, but are very different in how they actually are. And so it's really important to find the right diagnosis and the right care, which is great that both of them are receiving exactly what they need to and are moving in the right directions for their individual paths and needs. So thanks for just taking a little look at bipolar disorder and the childhood mood disorder, DMDD, and